Hi everyone, my name is Madline Mercer. My CE project is called Developing a Cooperative Food Business at Arizona State University, and it's supported by Dr. Arnhem Week in the Sustainable Food Economies Lab at ASU. Through my project, I seek to address the issue of food insecurity by increasing students' capacity to collectively transform the local food system. By bringing together students, staff, and industry stakeholders, I hope to lay the foundation for the development of a student-run food co-op at ASU. My project specifically seeks to address the issue of food insecurity among university students, which is a pressing sustainability problem due to its prevalence, complex socioeconomic drivers, and adverse effects. Food insecurity, which is defined as a lack of consistent access to adequate amounts of healthy, affordable, and culturally relevant food, affects more than 45% of university students across the U.S. Unfortunately, ASU is one of the many institutions that are impacted by this issue. A recent study found that over 35% of ASU students are food insecure and, as a result, face a variety of detrimental physical, psychological, and academic impacts. To address this sustainability challenge, my project proposes the development of a sustainable, student-run cooperative food business at ASU. Because food co-ops create a point of food access and develop sustainable livelihood opportunities, they are a successful strategy for mitigating the geographic and economic inaccessibility of food, which are two key drivers of food insecurity. Food co-ops have long been used to advance food access, economic self-determination, and food justice, so this project aims to lay the foundation for the establishment of such an enterprise here at ASU. Through the development of an enterprise startup plan and the execution of preliminary coalition building efforts, this project seeks to demonstrate the plausibility of the solution while empowering stakeholders with the strategies needed to enact it. To achieve these goals, my CE project takes a dual approach that's grounded in both capacity building and coalition building. To build stakeholders' capacity and knowledge surrounding the development of student co-ops, I've created a suite of materials to inform and guide students and staff through this development process. These resources include an analysis of existing university food co-ops, a sustainability vision of what an ASU food co-op might look like, and key strategies related to cooperative development in a university setting. I also began developing a stakeholder network of project supporters, which will be essential for actualizing a food co-op at ASU. This work involved an assessment of local stakeholders and a consensus-building process that was designed to collectively shape the vision and strategy that were developed during this project. This diagram outlines the methods and frameworks that I used to structure my project and develop my deliverables. Throughout my project, I used two sustainability frameworks to guide my efforts. These included the Transformational Sustainability Entrepreneurship, or TSE framework, and the Transformational Sustainability Research, or the TSR framework. The first stage of my project was focused primarily on data collection and analysis, during which I used the TSE framework to analyze the histories, programs, and sustainability efforts of existing university food co-ops. Then, through an application of the TSR framework, I further analyzed this data to identify common success factors, challenges, and mitigation strategies. The second stage of my project was focused on the development of the Enterprise Startup Plan, which includes both an evidence-based sustainability vision and a detailed set of strategies needed to actualize the co-op. This stage integrated the identified best practices for student co-op development with an additional research on cooperative development and stakeholder feedback. During this stage, I consulted with a diverse array of institutional and community stakeholders to build project buy-in and ensure that the Enterprise Startup Plan was a product of co-creation. The processes that I described in the previous slide resulted in three main types of project outcomes. First, those related to my cooperative analysis efforts, then those related to the stakeholder interviews I conducted, and finally, those related to the development of the Enterprise Startup Plan. In the next three slides, I'll summarize each type of project outcome in more detail and share some of the insights that I gained from that process. Through my cooperative analysis efforts, I identified several key success factors, common challenges, and mitigation strategies employed by student cooperators across the country. These factors were beneficial in the development of my enterprise startup plan, since they gave me some insights on how to structure and design the ASU Food Co-op to best succeed in light of these anticipated challenges. The identification of common barriers and mitigation strategies was especially helpful, as this enabled me to identify possible risks inherent to the business model while helping me to determine the best practices needed to overcome them. Of those listed, One of the strongest strategies for ensuring the success of a student-run food co-op seemed to be the hiring of a full-time, non-student advisor to provide mentorship, oversight, and continuity to the enterprise. This advisor can help bridge any gaps in student knowledge while mitigating the impacts of constant student turnover. Another key strategy involves the pursuit of multiple revenue streams, which can help to offset the low profit margins of many grocery retail products. For example, this could involve the sale of both grocery staples, think ingredients, and value-added goods like ready-made meals. These value-added goods can be sold at a higher price, earning the co-op more revenue while helping to offset the impacts of its limited purchasing power. A third mitigation strategy is the integration of student employment opportunities with cooperative business education. In cases like this, the students who are running the food enterprise are simultaneously engaged in 4-credit coursework on business operations and cooperative management. This can provide students with an additional layer of support while helping them to better balance their academic and co-op related commitments. To best prepare ASU students and staff to implement a food co-op at our university, all these factors are addressed in more detail in the business plan and overarching strategy document. My project also focused heavily on coalition building efforts. Throughout my project, I interviewed over 25 institutional and community stakeholders to gain their insights on the concept and enterprise startup plan of the ASU Food Co-op. These included representatives from 3 different colleges and over 10 departments at ASU, in addition to local and national experts on cooperative development in the local food economy. Through semi-structured interviews, I sought to gain stakeholders' insights on various elements of the vision and strategy that were included in the enterprise plan. This process was intended to build diverse stakeholder perspectives into the development of the plan, creating more of a collective development process. In my analysis of the resulting interview transcripts, I identified 5 key areas that encompassed the majority of stakeholders' feedback. These areas included advice on enterprise framing, tactics to build support, strategies for integrating the enterprise into existing initiatives, advice on how to build in flexibility, and techniques on how to build confidence in the feasibility of this business model. I integrated each of these areas of feedback into the enterprise startup plan, which is now more holistic and flexible as a result. Both my cooperative analysis and stakeholder interviews were designed to inform the development of the enterprise startup plan for the ASU Food Co-op. This plan, which is my primary stakeholder deliverable, combines elements of a traditional business plan with sustainability strategies developed through an application of the TSR framework. The graphic on the right side of the slide details the components of the enterprise startup plan. Key elements include the enterprise profile, description of the corporate form and its governance model, key partnerships, financing strategies, and startup activities. In addition to capturing the vision of what an ASU food co-op might look like, this plan aims to build stakeholders' confidence in the feasibility of implementing such an enterprise through the inclusion of best practices and profiles on existing university food co-ops. The plan is primarily intended to be shared with potential funders, as well as with ASU administration as we continue the process of seeking approval for this initiative. To work towards actualizing the ASU food co-op that's described in the enterprise startup plan, I've identified 4 key next steps. First, it will be essential to establish a working group of individuals who are committed to continuing this project. This group, which I hope to formally establish by the end of the semester, can work collectively towards implementing project strategy and pursuing project funding. The working group can build upon the project by continuing our coalition building efforts that will be needed to establish a food co-op at ASU. Using the stakeholder network analysis that I conducted for guidance, the working group can conduct additional interviews, focus groups, and stakeholder workshops to build a community of support around this initiative. The working group can also collectively pursue funding for additional concept planning and startup efforts. By building on the relationship that I established with members of the ASU Foundation, the group can apply for financial support from the funding opportunities that I identified in the enterprise startup plan. Finally, the working group can leverage the connections I've made with other university food co-ops around the U.S. to inform their collective development while establishing a network to share best practices. Overall, I'm incredibly grateful to have had the opportunity to engage in this work, and I plan to do whatever I can to support the development of the ASU Food Co-op after graduation. Throughout this process, I've learned a lot about myself, both as a person and as a sustainability professional. As a result of my CE project, my confidence in myself and my skills related to stakeholder engagement, project management, and public speaking have significantly increased. Whereas before I would have hesitated to connect with a stranger, I now feel excited and entirely competent when engaging in various modes of stakeholder communication. Through this project, I've also discovered my passion for developing sustainable food enterprises. Prior to this work, I never would have envisioned myself as an entrepreneur. Now, I know that designing alternative food businesses is actually something that excites and fulfills me, and I'm going to try really hard to integrate this passion into my post-graduation career. If I were to redo this project, I would make a few minor changes to the project timeline and stakeholder engagement strategy. Knowing now how time-consuming stakeholders interviews can be, I would have started engaging with stakeholders even earlier to allow myself more time to develop the enterprise startup plan and establish connections with the broader community. However, aside from these minor changes, I wouldn't alter anything about my culminating experience. The project enabled my creativity to flourish, and it's inspired me to find other ways to collectively transform our food system. Thank you for watching. I'm so appreciative of your guidance and support throughout this process, and I look forward to hearing your feedback and questions.